Good afternoon once again, dear participants. Well, we're going to have rather difficult and at the same time not that difficult function because a lot has already been mentioned about the role of civil society and the need for supporting it. And together with our brilliant speakers, each of whom is an expert in his or her field, will try to identify and outline the core trends. We will try to determine what we could possibly expect from our donors as far as support of civil society over the next 3 to 5 years is concerned. And we will have a look at the success stories that could possibly be there. And we will have a look at the tools for intensifying, enhancing coordination between donors and civil society. We will have a hybrid format, mixed format, because most participants are in the audience are Ukrainian speakers, but in the panel we will have both English-speaking and Ukrainian-speaking participants, panelists, and we hope that our discussion will be effective. Rosanna has already made a short introduction saying that it was only last year that Ukraine got quite an amount of international in assistance, 42 billion USD, 11 of which are irreversible assistance. These are not exactly the amounts of grants that are provided by your organizations, but international support is something that really matters for Ukrainian civil society. Could you briefly share your vision of the program activity of your organizations for the next 1 to 3 years? What are the program fields that you will cover within your fields of activity? What will be the geographical coverage, because it's also important? And what type of projects will dominate? Will a due preference be given to security projects, or will you pay more attention to development, or probably to reconstruction and recovery, which sometimes go side by side with each other? Because we can see this trend. So let's take one round for this question, and then we'll try to go deeper into some specialized issues. Uliana? Thank you, first of all, for the interesting question. That is a very interesting issue, and it's always worth discussing our plans. It's difficult to plan. Civil society finds it difficult to do planning, and donors find it difficult to do the planning because we don't know what will going to happen in the context of the things that have been voiced in the previous panels. We really don't know what will be happening. That's why, of course, we have some plans, we do the planning, but we understand that we have to be flexible. IREX is the international organization that covers more than 100 countries of the world, and I should say that in Ukraine, we have adjusted our activities, and in spite of the fact that we focus on our basic vision, which is working with media, with youth, these are media literacy and the experience exchange programs, but nevertheless in Ukraine we have adjusted our activity, and even before the full-scale invasion we launched some programs focusing on targeting the needs that are war related to the war with Russia. So our portfolio now includes working with veterans, IDPs, and now we've also got quite a large scale program focusing on quick response. So our plan is to go on with all this. We don't intend to have any shifts in our focus. We will keep focusing on the development of our programs that are already currently in existence. And these programs really go side by side, shoulder to shoulder with recovery. We do not separate those directions. We are a non-humanitarian organization, which means that we are not providing humanitarian assistance. And as far as geographical coverage is concerned, we work in all the regions of Ukraine. Definitely, it used to be the case that we covered all the 24 regions and Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Now it's no longer possible to work there. That's why we're limited, but we don't have any geographical priorities, and all our programs are launched equally in different regions. Oleksandr, thank you. I will start with giving an overall characteristics of the dynamics in civil society, and I will speak on our plans later. We are a private foundation which is an part of the Global Open Society Foundation, and at the same time, we, the International Renaissance Foundation, or the Renaissance Foundation, are the nationally registered organization, and we are guided by the citizens of Ukraine. So, because of this dual nature, we have a special role in the donor community, and that's how we are different from the programs that are funded by taxpayers of different countries. Though, over the recent years, our foundation had also been a grant recipient, and we operate not just private money, but the money of the EU, Sweden, Norway, and some other countries. But that's already a detail. I would like to mention that what matters for us is to see the situation, to analyze the situation, and to reflect the changes in the society, to reflect on them. Because one of the peculiarities of our foundation is that we generally focus on the needs of civil society and its development. That has always been the case. That is actually what is in our mandate. That's why the topic of this panel discussion is very much related to us. Ukrainian civil society during the war is something different than we were accustomed to, and obviously we as the donor could not but take into account the changes that already occurred and that keep occurring in Ukrainian civil society. And here I first of all mean this new wave of civil activism that was given birth to by the war and by the consequences of the war. First of all, this is the wave that focuses on the consequences, on the outcomes of the war, and it is of unprecedented large scale. Civil activism Ukraine has never had in that scope. Well, that is well related in different statistical data and surveys and in the material component as well. We don't have any reliable statistics as for now because it wouldn't even be possible to suggest any methodology for collecting statistical data, but I may state that the scope of money raised by Ukrainians, NGOs, through crowdfunding and other methods is unprecedented. By now, I mean the years of this war. Some civil society organizations raising money from people have a larger budget than the foundation, than the Renaissance Foundation. And these are just the uh, grassroots organizations that exist only because they have donations from citizens. Of course, that is related to the extremities of the war and the response of society to the needs of the war when they entrust those organizations helping the army with their money. And these are also the organizations helping the veterans and people affected by the war. That is definitely a phenomena which makes the picture of Ukrainian civil society different from what we used to have. And that's why we as donors cannot but respond to that. We were trying to follow several principles and we keep going along those principles. The first principle is that we are helping those who can help themselves. Those who prove that they are capable, that they are sustainable, and those who show that they really can work with the reality that they have around them, relying on the society. These are the ones that will be helped by us, because this reliance on society gives not just the money but social legitimacy, and then the donor doesn't have to invent anything to create some civil society. The donor just has a look at the picture and identifies those points of growth and maturing that are worth supporting. That's why, on the one hand, this situation is really still extreme because it's caused by the war, but on the other hand, we see a lot of vulnerabilities in this situation, but that is also helpful because it is the society itself that finds those vital and resilient components in it. The civil society gives the signals to the segments of civil society that are trusted, and the society that delegates this trust to the most effective civil society initiatives really helps donors amend their strategy and identify their niches and their pathways that should also be flexible and changing all the time. Definitely over all those years we have been working very intensely, very dynamically as far as amending our priorities is concerned, and definitely from year to year we introduce some changes. Well, there are some things that still remain fundamental for us. Suppose support of the European integration and accession to the EU. This is the thing that has remained unchanged for many years, but probably it has gained new meaning because of the candidacy status, and this is the legacy that we are going on with. But it is also filled with new senses all the time because it was really important for us to identify those new senses along with the entities in the society that used to work before and already do have some expertise and experience and constitute the driving engines of the process. So along with them, we've also got a number of new social entities, social actors that come to be known and that need to be supported if we can see that they really manage to find their cohesiveness and their voices in the concerted European Union context. So these are the um, initiatives of the Ukrainian society that are smoothly growing into the overall European context. We see them and we try to support them. But that's regarding modification of our legacy. And as far as new things caused by the war are concerned, so we really help a lot to the organizations that either were established or got reoriented in their activities as a result of the war, and these are the ones that help war-affected population. These are people and entities doing voluntary. I will not go into detail because some part of this work is very delicate from the point of view of international donors, but we are present in all those areas. As far as international activity is concerned, in particular, well, we support different dialogue platforms, including this forum, the ones that are the most successful, the most effective, and we also support in the international effort related to bringing criminals to account for war crimes. We do a lot of work together with our human activist organizations in order to convey the messages, truthful messages about the war to the world, to record the crimes, to pack those crimes into the framework that would fit well into the international criminal context, and not only, but mainly to also I create this memory policy for the Ukraine and for the world. We have made this war as recorded as only possible. It is already stated that this war is the most protocolized war in the history of mankind, and this is actually thanks to the efforts of our field organizations that have been working in the field since 2014. Just we had to enhance this experience. And we have a wider mission related to intensification of Ukrainian voices throughout the world in different aspects. We don't follow one line only, we have to choose specific aspects, and here I'm talking not just about Europe or European integration. This is more of a global line, but the world is so large that it's very difficult to embrace everything. We have to focus on some priorities, but we promoted the establishment of contacts with the regions and countries of the world which normally and traditionally have not been in the focus of our leaders, of our authorities, and Ukraine as a country in general. We've got a number of projects supported in terms of our relationship with Asia, Latin America, Africa. So that is what we have in our portfolio. Though, again, these are the projects that require quite a lot of money. The question was what we are going to do next. What is the plan? So right now we are working on our strategy for 3 years, which is an important document for us because over the recent years we have been working within 1 year cycles, and this really affects everything. If you just have the horizon of 1 year in front of you, this affects your planning capacity. Now we do the planning for a 3 year cycle. Well, somebody says that we cannot be doing the planning for more than 1 year in such conditions of uncertainty, but now we have got convinced that we still need to develop a strategy for 3 years, but it's still under elaboration. What does it mean for our partners? It means that we hope that we will be able to conclude agreements for longer periods of time, and we will have not 3 months or 6 months grant agreements, but these could be the grant agreements for 2 years. And I think that for many partners that would be much, much better. We are absolutely conscious of that fact. So that's what our plan is. That's what we would like to make it happen, and I hope it will really happen, and definitely we will announce whenever it happens. So we are planning the transition to more strategic long-term relations with those ones who have already earned our trust and who are really influential actors in their own fields. But this does not mean that we will not be looking for the new seeds, for the new branches that start growing. And in our culture, the search of something new in the civil society is something that we've always been paying attention to. And we are trying to reach the grassroots, which cannot be reached by large donors because we're also providing some small grants. So I think that in the future, we will also be doing this. Well, sometimes it's much easier to work with the partners who will definitely do everything what they have promised because they are influential and because they have proven this. But this doesn't mean that we should not be working with those new sprouts. We need to be looking for them because of the high dynamics in civil society nowadays. Unfortunately, this dynamics is not only positive but also negative because of the outflow of people, but something new, something positive keeps popping up from day to day, and I hope that we will be capable of seeing this and supporting this. Thank you.
So please, the next. But I will ask you to be very brief and to follow the timing, to keep the timing, maybe 2-3 minutes, because we have many questions ahead and not that much time. I see now.
Okay, I'll do my very best. Thank you so much. Jan Philipp Wölbern is my name. I'm speaking on behalf of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. We are closely linked to the Christian Democratic Union, the party in Germany which will hopefully come into power next year again after the recently, elections which will take part in Germany. We are not a classical donor organization, as the colleagues sitting here on the panel. We are a political foundation, which means we have a special focus on the question of how is the political situation in Ukraine going on. And so this means we have also this field of civil society, because you cannot have a democracy without civil society. That's not possible. Just to give 2 examples where we have projects ongoing and planning. First of all, we just recently launched a new scholarship program for Ukrainian students who are studying at a Ukrainian university. And that was great because we had more than 200 applications from all over Ukraine, not just from one region, but from all Ukrainian universities. And I'm very much looking forward to this new program. Another focus we have is, of course, on political education. We have a long-standing partner. We are doing political trainings together, for example, for members of parliament, for members of local radas, starosti. I think that's the name you call it. So we want to give this expertise on how to do politics on a very practical level. I could go on with that now for a long time, but let's keep it for that. One remark, you cannot have democracy without political parties either. And so this is the second point we are active in, and this is something where we are, have a special focus. We also say, okay, if Ukraine wants to have a brighter future, we also need to invest in the political partners. And this is something which will maybe become even more prominent, even more important, because you need to have people who run for offices. You need people who want to go into parliaments, who want to be a responsibility. And this is a task which cannot be done only by civil society. This is a task where you need people who have kind of a party connection and who bear this responsibility. So this is final statement, maybe also a question we will focus more on in the time to come. How can we maybe get these two spheres of civil society and politics closer together? Because I think there is something which urgently needs a new approach, because this is the political future of Ukraine, which is also at stake right now. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karine. I'm working in a foundation called Fondation de France. It's also a private foundation, but it's not linked to the government. It's not linked to businessmen. It's not even linked to political party. I would say it's linked to citizens, because the way we are collecting money is launching call for fund, and French people give us their money for different causes. 80% of our work is supporting CSOs within our own country, France, and around 20% abroad. I'm heading the emergency department, and when there is a big disaster or war, we are launching a specific call for fund, and I only have the money that I can collect on the French citizen. So this is very challenging, because when I start the program, I don't know how much money people will give us. And then I have an ID, and I have to take care about the way we are spending this money, especially in the case of Ukraine, because it's a lasting war. And at the first year, we really try to spend a lot of money to support the people, and then we realize it's gonna last, and that we have to be able to support our partners on the long term. So what we've done is that we decided to reduce the number of partners. We had at that time around 100 partners in Ukraine and in 5 neighboring countries. And we decided in 2023 to reduce this number of partners with a list of criteria. This kind of criteria of like being close to the community, capacity to collaborate with other organizations, values, of course, and we also try to keep partners in the different regions of Ukraine and in different sectors of activities. And we decided also to keep Moldova, only Moldova with Ukraine, because of this common common interest for the European Union integration, and also because Moldova is one of the poorest countries in Europe, and they are hosting a very big number of refugees according to their own population. And I like Moldova. So we kept only 15 partners, and there are small partners, big partners, networks. Half of them are working on humanitarian action, supporting IDPs, evacuation, hosting, feeding, you know that better than me. And the other half is working on human rights and environmental issues. Yeah, so maybe I keep it.
Okay, thank you. Gillian, maybe you would like to add anything about planning for 1-3 years ahead. Priorities, perspectives?
Excuse me. Sorry for clearing my throat into the microphone. Thank you very much, and sorry for being late. I would love it if I had the ability to have a 3-year strategy into the future. Unfortunately, my hands are tied according to the amount of funding that I have from donors to do our work in this country, right? So Internews is an international organization, and we apply for grants like Ukrainian organizations do. Our grant, our major kind of grants right now are with the United States Agency for International Development. So we run a very big media program with them in the country, and that has 1 more year to go. So I know what I'm going to be doing for 1 more year on that, and I know what I'm going to be doing for 1 more year on a program that is funded generously by the people of Sweden. The Swedish International Agency for Development is also interested in the survival of Ukrainian media. I think right now that's our focus, is on making sure that as much as possible, as many as possible of the media that are really doing a good job in this country are able to survive this extremely challenging period for them. Because we believe that after the Ukrainian victory, the advertising market will recover. For example, I saw some data which was shared with me by a friend which was put together a prognosis of the advertising market in different European countries. It was created before the full-scale invasion, but the prognosis for Ukraine's advertising market at that time was very positive. So we believe that there's a future for the advertising market to improve and return. And I also believe that there's things that we should be doing to help media build their own subscription models, like I talked about in a previous panel, to ensure that the grants that we're giving that are institutional in nature and basically help people to pay wages and keep the lights on and purchase the equipment that they need to keep going, that doesn't hamper them in terms of their long-term sustainability. So, that's a goal that we have.
And then we logically come to the issue of sustainability. How should it look like? Because the trends you have just emphasized and the ones we were trying to mention while formulating the approaches to this panel discussion shows that the civil society is really dynamic nowadays. And this dynamics is both positive and negative. And we also have such a trend as human resources like flowing from the grassroots initiatives developed by donors to the staff of the donors. As a result, the organizations stopped being resilient and sustainable, and they need new stuff. So how would you address this issue? How can we overcome this trend, and what efforts should we take? Miss Uliana, probably you'll start. Well, staff problematics is not only about the civil society, but it covers a number of sectors. Yes, but the trend is there when local civil society NGOs lose their activists because people start working in the international projects due to the fact that the number of such projects has grown significantly throughout the recent 3 years. Yes, that's the problem. But from our own experience, IREX experience, we also have the sort of human resources outflow. First of all, it happened when people left Ukraine, and there were some our employees among them, and definitely people joined some international projects. So it's a global problem, in my opinion, and I think it is cross-sectoral problem at the same time. So that means we should think how we can enhance and strengthen all the organizations in order to meet their needs regarding the human resources. And there were different discussions on this issue, but I would like to highlight the positive side of this issue. In my opinion, more and more representatives of local organizations join the big international projects, and that means that this grassroots experience, field experience, goes to the level of the international projects and is used at the decision-making process, for example, when the grants are distributed and some other activities. And this is important. And as we see more and more leaders from the civil society, probably these people will go to the top levels, not only in Ukraine, but also at the international level. And that means that we may expect that the opinion of Ukrainians will be taken into account. So we have to mention also the positive side of this trend. And I think we should also take this into account. There is another side of the medal, I would say a complementary problem. In such projects and under conditions of uncertainty and short-term planning, there is no possibility to involve people when you have a fixed salary. And logically, the people do not feel confident and stable. So how this issue can be resolved? Because when we have short-term projects, as a rule, the experts are given fees, and as a result, we have more operational activities, operational tasks. Also, there are some requirements to the reporting. So how do we resolve this issue? I'm talking about some restrictions of the conditions we live in and the opportunities still there. So, Oleksandr, the question to you as well. Uliana probably will start and then Oleksandr will pick up. So I will tell you how we are working with our partners. Well, the point is that a lot of NGOs do not take a strategic approach to the activity. So from the position of the international partner, we help them develop such strategies and see different opportunities in order to reduce their dependence on the international donors or just on one donor. So we teach them to look for some alternative sources where they can replenish their human resources. Oleksandr, you also provide institutional support. Will it be modified in the nearest future? Well, in our experience, we do not face this outflow of people because we provide grants to the very NGOs. It means we do not create any jobs beyond the civil society. So this is the peculiarity of our foundation. So probably I do not know everything. I mean, I do not have all the correct answers, but well, this is the mandate of our foundation. The general picture, the way I see it. In our case, it would be logical to ensure the possibility for longer grants. Well, the average duration of the grant is 6 months, and I understand that it is not enough to create sustainability or the feeling of sustainability among our partners, particularly when they are trying to engage some experts or some obligations for their current staff. So we cannot ensure this long-term planning, and usually people are trying to see those long-term horizons or sustainability horizons. And when, for example, some jobs are created for 3 or 4 years, definitely such a job is more attractive for professionals. So the donors probably should think about creating jobs within the frameworks of the existing organization and not just actually taking people from these organizations. I I think it is possible to find a technical solution how to achieve this situation. But the point is that for many donors, support of the sustainability of the local civil society is not their primary task, and therefore they probably may neglect this issue. And that means that you have to communicate this issue to them at the moment they plan their long-term projects. Karen?
Thank you. Is it working? Yes. This is not specific to Ukraine. I think it's a problem for the whole civil society in the world, being funded by project instead of institutionally. As I explained earlier, when we decided to keep only 15 partners in 2023, we organized a meeting here in Uzhgorod, with the Ukrainian partners, to discuss with them about what they need and what they want. And it was very interesting for us because we thought that the requirements would be regarding project for IDPs or any kind of activity that these organizations are doing. And they spoke a lot about the problem of their organizational problem. And they mentioned, for example, the problem of the mental health of their staff and themselves. So this was very interesting because from Paris I could not guess, well I could a little bit, but that this one, the first problematic they were facing. They raised also this problem of having a core group in their organization that they could maintain and that they could be sure to be able to pay them for several years. And so now we are having discussion with each of these organizations so that they can decide about their own strategy. There is no one solution, there is no one option, and it really depends on each organization. I would like maybe to mention a nice experience we are having now with 3 foundations from Karpattia, because it's reopened Zakarpattia. We have here in the room the director of Karpattia Slovakia, Karpattia Ukraine, and they are working together with Karpattia Hungary. It's a very nice experience because we knew each other, well, not personally, before the war, because we had some European activities together. And it's a very nice partnership because we can really discuss as equals and think about planning, maybe not long-term, but middle-term planning. And there is a real solidarity between our 4 foundations. And they know very well the civil society, Ukrainian civil society, Hungarian, Slovakian. So for us, it's also a nice opportunity to reach a relevant organization and to think about our collaboration for the future.
So I see that actually we get to the question of expanding the focus related to the functioning of civil society organizations and donor vision. Your organizations, well, at least the majority of organizations presented here support grassroots initiatives. In some cases, you also support the central initiatives. The Renaissance Foundation has a new priority, and this is the punishment for international war crimes. And we see that there were some modifications also related to the Ukraine being given the candidate status. So how it's possible to improve coordinations or the programs? How it's possible to better engage Ukrainian civil society into European initiatives, pan-European initiatives, and particularly within the context of Ukraine's accession to the EU and within the context of Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic aspirations. Is it possible to mention some sustainability? There are advocacy visits. They are definitely useful and beneficial. They facilitate better information about the state of things, but they do not often influence decision-making level. So what are the chances to make them more sustainable? Probably there should be some special structures created within the context of Euro integration, or probably there should be some sustainable multi-year platforms. What do you think about this trend? And are there any opportunities to do something like this? We can start with you. I really like stable and sustainable decisions, but sometimes they are too much bureaucratic and do not allow us to achieve the desired result. And for example, we have the platform of civil society, Ukraine and EU, and I was the co-founder of this platform, which was created on the basis of the association agreement. And yes, it is this sustainable platform for civil society. I was the first co-chair on the Ukrainian part. But have you heard something about this platform throughout the recent years? Unfortunately not, and that means that bureaucracy wins. But well, the platform exists. How can we revive it when to some extent it is squeezed between different bureaucratic issues, and as a result, there is a drop of interest even of the most active people. Well, people do not apply. And on the part of the European Union, this is chaired by European Economic and Social Committee, ECOSOC, and they have their own procedures and rules. So as a result, on both sides, we have very few real public activists who shape the agenda both in Europe and in Ukraine. On the one hand, we have this sustainability, that's great, so we exist until we have this association agreement, but on the other hand, it's far from ideal. Still, on the other hand, we have ad hoc initiatives that achieve good results. And when, for example, we were talking about advocacy campaigns for Ukraine, about sanctions support and military support, we have lots of very successful examples where people have already established connections and have good knowledge of their target audiences, and therefore it means they managed to achieve a lot with the participation of the civil society. I'm talking about the period of 2 years and a half, and I'm really happy that our foundation also contributed to this.
I would say that, we've tried to help our Ukrainian partners that focus on this work to bring Ukraine's legal environment closer to what the Europeans call their acquis, their basically getting steps closer to resembling the same European legal framework, so that means that all of those boxes are checked when it comes to eventual full integration. And to that degree, I would say that Ukraine has come quite a few steps forward in relation to media. So the law on media that was passed with the help of several major Ukrainian civil society organizations. I'm thinking of the Center for Democracy and the Rule of Law, TSADEM, and also the Digital Security Lab of Ukraine and Institute of Mass Information Detector Media, many others. The National Association of Media weighed in on these issues to make sure that that law met that bar of bringing Ukraine as much as possible in line with the EU Audiovisual Directive, for example. And I know that they're also working on the new Digital Services Act that the Europeans are planning to pass soon. Also, I think an important step forward was the ratification by Ukraine of the Tromsø Convention, because one of the problems that we hear from our colleagues a lot is that it's difficult to get access to public information sometimes, and this is essentially a step forward in the sense that Ukraine has become part of an international European-led initiative to improve the execution of the access to public information law. It means that Ukrainians have been elected to the oversight committee for that convention. It means there will be oversight and monitoring of the performance of judges making decisions on whether to grant access to public information or not. And I think that all of these things done also during a period of full-scale invasion show that Ukraine's trajectory is quite fully along the right lines.
So you already start sharing success stories, but still I would like us to get back to a number of problematic issues that we have inherited, so to say, from the period of pre-war Ukraine and which are still existing today. In the past, there was a trend when every new donor started doing all the researches and surveys anew. The donor coordination has not always been effective. At the same time, now we do not have this opportunity of dispersing different resources. So how it's possible to improve the efficiency of inter-donor coordination and how it's possible to use the resources in the most effective way? Miss Uliana and then Karen. Probably I may start. In my opinion, coordination now is something we all should work on. I mean, the civil society institutions, the donor. But when we are talking about donors, it's important to understand that irrespective of the fact that there are lots of resources sent to Ukraine, still there are more needs than resources. And it is very important to avoid duplication of funding or, for example, investing resources in a certain place where it's not that urgent. For example, there was the organization that started in 2019 the program of reintegration of veterans. So we were one of the first programs that started working in that area. And now we also try to be active in this area and try to establish a sort of a coordination group. Probably you know that there are clusters that coordinate donors activity. However, the veteran topic is not covered by any of the clusters. On the other hand, more and more donors are interested in working with veterans. And now the trend is that even those programs which are not focusing on veterans include certain veteran components into their agenda. So our partner is the State Department of the US, and they are working in cooperation with the Ministry of Veterans, and they try to establish the coalition of donors. So I'm talking about the US State Department and Great Britain. On our part, we at IREX took on responsibility and brought, well, it is actually a very new initiative. Last week we had a meeting of different international organizations that implement the veteran programs. And the meeting was aimed at understanding what can we do together with our partners, so we were trying to evaluate the situation. We were trying to assess the most crucial needs, talking about both the topics and the geographical regions. And we were trying to see how we as the donor community can cooperate with the state partners and the public activists in order to provide assistance in the most effective way. And it seems to me this is just one of the topics, but the same may be said about other topics. Karine?
I will speak about foundations because the coordination with our government, I think it's done at the national level. But regarding foundation, I wanted to mention the regular meetings we have since the beginning at the European level. There is an organization called Philea, and it's gathering hundreds of foundations in Europe. I guess most of your foundations are also part of this network. And last year, we decided to create a group regarding the support to Ukraine, to try to think long-term support, because as I said before, the money we have, we are not sure we can sustain. So we are trying to collaborate in order to be able to support CSOs on the long run. And we should be able, by the beginning of next year, to create pool funds, meaning that several foundations are putting money in one fund, and we work together on identifying the partners and supporting them. There should be a fund on mental health, which I already mentioned earlier, because this is something that will need long-term support. And we are discussing about other issues like culture, education, and citizenship linked with democracy.
As we, well, are almost short of time, I want us to highlight the balance between regional distribution and geographic distribution. Ms. Uliana has already mentioned a successful example of donor synergy in veteran affairs, and, well, the problematic topic is there, and the approaches of donors are changing because the needs are different. There is social rehabilitation, medical rehabilitation, reintegration, and many others. And these aspects actually are mainly addressed by the regions in the rear, which at the beginning of the full-scale invasion hosted lots of IDPs, and up till now are still the platforms for rehabilitation of war veterans. But there is also another trend. One big donors very quickly reduce their activity in the rear regions and intensify their support to the frontline regions due to the huge needs of those regions. So they restore those regions that have been destroyed, and this is a totally different cluster and different segment of support. So how should we ensure this conditional geographic balance between restoration and development, and what we call crisis response, to avoid imbalance? Is it possible generally to ensure this balance? So is it possible to retain highly qualified workforce in the rear areas of Ukraine? Is it possible to ensure high quality of services for the war veterans, for the members of their families and other vulnerable categories of population? Where is this balance? Who would like to address this point?
I have a counter argument because one of our programs shows the opposite. We have 3 regional coordinators, so 3 Ukrainians who are living and working in Ukraine, and their task is to establish partnerships between Ukrainian cities and German cities. And this is also one of the success stories, because in February 22 we started with 70-something partnerships, and now these are more than 200. So they're more than tripled the number of these partnerships between cities. And the point is, if you look on the map, we have a map in our office where you can see the partnerships, and you see the gross of them is between, let's say, cities in the west part of Ukraine or the center part of Ukraine and German cities. But the further you come to the eastern frontline regions, the less the number of partnership cities becomes. So this is maybe an example where it has the opposite, we see the opposite trend. And it's explainable, of course. You can, it's much easier to get, for example, German delegations to western part of Ukraine. Look, see our conference. The likelihood that someone comes here is much higher than someone traveling to Dnipro, for example.
Maybe other thoughts?
These are very hard questions you're asking us. I mean, I can only say that, you know, we have a remit inside USAID's media program in Ukraine to support access to information around the country, not just in areas that are in the south and the east of the country. But it also says in the language of our instructions from the donor that we should have a focus on the needs of journalists and audiences who are in areas which are very badly affected by the war. And that's understandable, right? Everybody can understand that. Finding the balance is a little bit up to us. I think it depends to a degree on the partners that we find and how effective they are with the funds that we can share with them. We have excellent partners in this part of the country. We work with the organizers of this event. We have supported the work of Uzhhorod Press Club, for example, and in other parts of the country which are not those frontline territories about which we speak. And there isn't an actual, you know, number attached that there has to be like 70% this and 30% that. But somehow it kind of works out 60-40, 70-30 in their favor. And, you know, I hope that will balance out. But at the moment, the needs there are surpassing greater. And so it's natural that there should be a focus on those places.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, our time is already expired. Так, але все-таки я сподіваюся, що ми
But I do hope that apart from, despite certain skepticism and not always great dynamics of civil society development and its support, we have managed to pinpoint the growth points that will be supported during the next years. And I think that certain synergy is possible. And well, the process won't be easy, that's understandable. We already have some lessons learned from the previous period, I mean, pre-full-scale invasion period. I'm talking about establishment of certain structures that facilitate Ukraine's accession to the EU, provide professional support of the human rights area, that produce shadow reports. So we have lots of areas that have been supported owing to initiatives of your organizations and efforts of your organizations. Let's hope that next year this partnership will be even more stable, will be supported, and we'll be able to mention some other trends and we'll be able to cite even more success stories. And I think